maybe we might be able to repeat it too. But Jesma, were you able to arrange the Arabic?
Yes. I'm starting it.
Let's go paragraph by paragraph, okay?
Inshallah, you can tell me, or I can follow it. I'm starting.
Okay.
المقام الثاني العربي من الكلمة 28 وأساس الكلمة 10. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله الذي شهدت على وجوب وجوده ووحدته ذرات الكائنات ومركباتها بلسان عجزها وفقرها، والصلاة والسلام على نبيه الذي هو كشاف طلسم الكائنات ومفتاح آياتها، وعلى آله وصحبه وعلى إخوانه من النبيين والمرسلين، وعلى الملائكة المقربين، وعلى عباد الله الصالحين من أهل السماوات والأرضين.
We can stop there. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما نافعا. All right, first, once again, I apologize for the delay. I didn't notice that my computer would restart twice in one day. Okay, Bismillah. So we will move on to the treatise called, especially in Mathnawi Nuri, al-Arabi, Mathnawi al-Arabi al-Nuri, the luminous Mathnawi of Ustad Bediuzzaman Said Nursi. For the two treatises that we read before this, the flashes and the droplets, and this section called especially, were actually written as a single treatise by Ustad Nursi, and then later when it was being incorporated into this book that we have been reading, they were separated into 3 treatises, and the coherence of the topics also allowed that. It did not have a name when it was written as a single treatise. As far as I understand, Ustad Nursi's brother, Abdul Majid Nursi, when he was translating the book into Turkish, and perhaps while organizing already in Arabic too, he called this La Siyamalar. And La Siyama means especially in Arabic. We don't use it in Turkish. And then he pluralized the word. So a proper translation of the title would be something like especiallys. I tried that at the beginning and it just didn't sound right. So I left it especially. The reason why we called it especially, or why he called it especially, is because later in the text we will see that there will come a place where it will be like especially, 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 especially. We will have several sections that start with especially. This treatise is primarily about the proof of resurrection and the hereafter. And the section that we listen to in Arabic is the very beginning. We are going to be doing the very beginning of the treatise today, inshallah. And usually in the tradition of Islam, scholars, those who have written books, start their works, their treatises, their books, obviously with Basmala and Salwala. And those both relate to prophetic traditions that teach us that if you don't start Basmala and Alhamdulillah and Salwala rather, if you don't start the work with the Basmala, it is aqim, it is not going to have a desirable outcome. And there are narrations about Hamdallah too. Now, Hamdallah is Alhamdulillah, right? Praising God. So this is that beginning section, and scholars usually indicate slowly, gradually, like ease you into the matter. They indicate what is to come in the rest of the treatise in these sections, especially the salawat at the beginning. It's usually related or relevant to what is going to be discussed. So I suppose we will not enter the core of the matter today, but from these introductions, we should glean a bit of what is to come. Brother Taimur, would you like to read the paragraph in English? Brother Taimur,
You
are you
have
hearing me?
Brother Ashraf also, Abi.
Yeah, Brother
Who?
Samuel was reading the words. Maybe Brother Ashraf can read.
Okay, yeah. Brother Ashraf, would you like?
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. All praise is due to the one in whose necessary existence and oneness the particles and composite bodies of the cosmos bear witness with the tongue of their impotence and poverty. And blessings and peace be upon the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, who unveiled the secret code of the cosmos and the key to its ayat, upon his brothers among the Anbiya and the Mursaleen, upon the Malaika who are brought close, and upon the Salihin of Allah, among the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth.
Okay, mashallah. I suppose you can read Arabic too from that.
I have a difficult time without vowels.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I recently got a copy with vowels, so inshallah we might try that. But when someone actually reads it, it's much better than the recitation, or not recitation, but the having the cell phone, Jazmabi cell phone read it. Okay. All praise is due to the one to whose necessary existence and oneness the particles and I will fix that. Actually, when my computer restart, I was about to fix this sentence, but it should be particles and the composite bodies they enter in the cosmos, something like that. Bear witness. So basically, 1 second. Ustad is telling us that everything in the cosmos, right? You start from the particles. At the time it was considered to be atoms or this thing called ether. Now we talk about subatomic particles, waves that move so fast that they appear to be particles, whatever, right? The tiniest thing that's out there. From those to all the various bodies that come into existence through the combination of those particles. That's everything. Individuals and the species that they enter, everything in cosmos bear witness with the tongue of their impotence and poverty. So what do they bear witness for? They bear witness to God's necessary existence and oneness. So necessary existence is wujub wujud, and oneness is wahdah. I think we can talk about 4 terms here. Impotence and poverty. I'm sure we must have talked about it before, but they are really, really, really important concepts in the Risale or Ustad Nursi's thought, and the concept of obviously necessary existence and oneness. Now, oneness, wahda, we see this in, or we saw this actually here in 2 forms as wahidiyya and ahadiyya. And when we say wahda or wahdaniyya, it is those 2 thought together, right? And we said that wahidiyya is God's oneness in relation to the whole of the creation, or in relation to universals in the creation. And when we say universals, for instance, when I say all stars, that's a universal in relation to, let's say, the sun and some other stars in the sky, right? So it's a universal that combines all subspecies and individual members under it. That is how God is manifest, God's oneness is manifest on the entire creation. And then when we say ahadiyya, that is how God's oneness is manifest. And in order to differentiate, I translate it as singularity. That's how God's oneness is manifest on individuals and individual species. It is like, let's say it's raining outside. Whoever goes out will get wet. The rain does not discriminate. The rain does not specify, right? If it is an area where it's raining, everybody who goes out gets wet. That's wahidiyah. Whereas if you were thirsty and somebody brought a cup of water and gave it to you, right? So it's both water, rain. One is water falling from the sky. The other is water being given to you in a cup of water. It is specified for you. It's designated for you. It is measured out according to your specific needs at the specific time that you need, right? So that's a hadiyah. And most names, perhaps all, and attributes of God in their manifestations have these two kinds of manifestation. So everything in the creation, from particles to composite bodies that the particles enter into, right? So there is an indication to that in that. When we say oneness, it's a combination of wahidiyya and ahadiyya. Wahda is wahidiyya and ahadiyya together. And immediately after that, Ustad Nursi is referring to particles and composite bodies, particulars and universals. And then the necessary existence actually comes before that. This is a concept or term that we hear frequently. Can somebody try to take a jab at that? To try to explain it to us? Maybe it might work better that way. It wouldn't be me talking alone.
What is the word, Dr. Tuna?
Wajib al-wujud, or wujud, wujubu wujudihi. So wajib al-wujud, necessary existence.
Can we say that everything in the one for which everything in the universe points to his existence, or maybe maybe I'm confusing it with something else. But the other way is like necessarily existent one. The other way I understand is like everything is contingent. Like everything has a cause that that normally can be seen as responsible or preceding it, but Allah is the only entity who does not need any precedence or anything that is preceding him. Can you understand that way? I don't know. Maybe I'm confusing it with some other term too. I'm not sure.
Mustafa, so are you saying like dependency and interdependency? So let's say all of other creatures, living things are dependent on Allah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is independent of everything else, of all the living creatures, for example.
Yes, these are very much related to what we are trying to get to, and its articulations in different ways. Very good.
Can we say,
we can,
yes, Fatih, please.
maybe we can think about the opposite. I mean, everything except wajib al-wujud is, they are called mumkinat. I mean, their being is just a possibility. I mean, they can be or they may not be. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't affect the existence of the universe. But wajib al-wujud is the one with whose existence this universe is created. By whose existence this universe is created.
Yes, yes, that's what we are looking for, right? This juxtaposition of two concepts, mumkin, that's possible or contingent, and wajib, necessary. And there are two at the highest level of analysis. There are two kinds of existence. One is necessary, the other is possible or contingent. So let's start with the possible. Okay, this is a cell phone. It is in my hand. It could have been in somebody else's hand. The particles that have come together in this cell phone could have been somewhere else, They did not have to be in the cell phone. I happened to purchase this from a store. Had I gone there maybe 2 days later, I might have purchased some other cell phone, and this cell phone may have been purchased by somebody else, right? It is, flat and silver colored, etc. It could have been gold colored. It could have been white. It could have been this. It could have been that. There are many possibilities that apply to this cell phone, and each and every particle that's in the cell phone, right? And these are all dependent or contingent, right? The other word is contingent. Contingent on other things. As I said, I went to that store at a specific time. Had I gone there 2 days later, this cell phone could have been in somebody else's hand. So it being in my hand right now is contingent upon me being in that store at that very time. Now, if you think of everything, from particles to the composite bodies that they enter into, there is nothing that is not contingent upon something else. Everything is contingent upon something else. Now, if everything is contingent upon something else, that leads us to a vicious circle that gives us no answer about where existence is coming from. And also where the particular form, shape, place, etc. of existence that each and everything has are coming from, right? So all of these then have to depend on something, somebody who is not dependent on anything else, who is not contingent, whose existence is not contingent upon anything, but is necessary in and of itself, by itself, right? And that is God. As far as I know, it was Ibn Sina who came up with this term, wajib al-wujud, and all scholars since then have accepted the term. The word like independent was used, for instance, so that's another term that was there before. The idea is there in the Quran, in the entire tradition. It was Ibn Sina who coined the term as is, and we have been using it ever since. It is especially importantly used, and it's especially important in logic, and also in kalam, in speculative theology that has incorporated logic into its discussions. Now, how do particles and composite bodies bear witness to God's necessary existence and oneness? And Ustad Nursi here says, with the tongue of their impotence and poverty. Can we also try to talk about those a little bit? What do they mean? Ajz and faqr are the words. Ajz, what do we understand from ajz? Impotence.
Impotence, having endless weakness, not to do anything, weakness, or having no power to act. So the whole universe is acting with the power of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything in the universe. So Ustad is, I was planning to comment on that also. Ustad has mentioned the particles and composite bodies. Especially, he didn't say everything. He said particles and composite bodies. So he is giving us a tangible thing so that we can understand it better. If he said everything, maybe it would be a little bit vague. But when he said particles, we know the particles, they have some many kinds of reactions in it, activities in it, and we are observing that they don't have any any mind, they don't have any consciousness, anything to have those abilities, but they are showing many miraculous actions. So everything, we can consider like the particles, they are forming the things in the universe. So everything we are observing, very perfect functions they are showing, but they don't have any power to have them. They don't have any consciousness to continue in existence. Yes.
Well, what about poverty, faqr?
Generally,
Can it
poverty
be, can it be like, I guess the poverty, like the definition of poverty is not having enough capital for what you need, right? In that definition, human beings, for example, and all the creatures too, but it's very apparent on human beings is that we need endless things. Our needs are, reaching to eternity, but our capital to get any of it is practically nothing. So we are endlessly poor from that perspective, because our capital, our needs are like paradise. It's not only limited to this world, it's an endless life that we actually need. Otherwise, we are not really, it doesn't suffice to have even all of the world. So, but our power to our capital to get it is nothing. So we are actually endlessly poor. That's what I understand.
Yes, good. MashaAllah. So poverty is, as Mustafa said, having needs, but not having the means to fulfill or meet those needs. Right? That's poverty. So if I'm hungry and I don't have food, or I don't have money to buy food, I don't have any access to food, then I'm in a state of faqr in relation to that food. Iftiqar is another word that they can use, like from the same root. So I'm in a state of poverty in relation to that food. Right? So the Arabic word is like has somewhat of a transitive sense, poverty for something. Iftiqar, especially when you use in that sense, to be in need of something, but not just need, but to be poor in relation to that thing, right? And impotence is, as Ismail also mentioned, not having any capacity, not having the power. So when we look at, and this, it is easier to understand in relation to ourselves, the human beings, because the poverty and impotence of the human beings are both endless. We are the most poor, the poorest and most impotent creatures in the entire creation, human beings. That might sound surprising and maybe like contrary to what they associate with the human beings, right? The noblest of the creation, etc., etc. But this is what makes them the noblest of the creation too, right? So why? Because the more needy you are, the more you can receive from your Lord. It is like a container. The larger and emptier the container is, the more can come into it. And all that comes to everything in the creation comes from God. So the human beings are recipients of God's blessings and effusions and the manifestations of his names and attributes to the highest degree. Right? But it is not only for human beings and animals, etc. It is for each and everything. Like if and when people try to explain existence based on a research about the forces that appear to exist in nature, right? They say, okay, the earth pulls the cell phone. The cell phone is our example today. Earth pulls the cell phone, it falls. And then you say, okay, but why is the Earth pulling the cell phone? And then they start to dig into the Earth. And then they get to the particles. And there are these protons and electrons, and they are charged. And when it's charged this way, that happens, and that this happens. And then you say, okay, but why is the proton attracting the electron? And why is the electron pushing the electron? Why is the proton pushing the other proton, right? Why are they pushing one other? No answer. They may try to dig further because they assume that if they can get to the very bottom of it, they are going to find it. And as they get to the bottom of it, it all disappears. It is just wavelengths, like waves moving. They are not even substance, right? But be it substance, be it that they get to the very bottom of it, they find the smallest particle, you can still ask. It's still a contingent being. It still does not have a power in and of itself, right? And yet, in order to push that other electron or push that other proton or attract that electron or interact with the neutron in this way, and etc., it needs some force. It needs something. And it doesn't have. And not only that, but it is also interacting with other atoms, other electrons, other protons in ways that bring into existence innumerable composite bodies. It brings into existence the body of the human being and the cell phone and the desk and the wall and the light, and lots, so many things are being made by using those particles in different combinations, and nothing in either in the composite body, the composition, or in the particle gives us a satisfactory answer about where that force, where that quality, where that, since all of these look like they are designed, where that design, where that plan, etc., are coming from. They're all in a state of poverty. They all they all do not have the power to meet what they are poor about, what they are in need of, right? That's because they're all contingent beings. They all depend on the one who is not contingent upon anything, whose existence is necessary, right? And also, since none of them have the intelligence to enter into such meaningful interactions with each other, to act in such meaningful ways, since none of them has the intelligence or plan or sight or knowledge or intent to do any of these, yet we see that there is a perfect order, perfect harmony, perfect organization, perfect design, right? Then this can only be the work of someone who is absolutely powerful. The necessary existence indicates that, because he is not dependent on anything. Everything is dependent on him. And that, of course, is the definition of the word as-Samad too. So the word Samad is related to necessary existence, right? Since he is the one who has absolute power because of the situation, everything is dependent on him, and he is not dependent on anything, right? Then you can attribute everything to him. So in this one sentence, Ustad Nursi, in a sense, explained the condition of existence, all existence, necessary existence and contingent existence together. That is everything. This is what existence is about. There is a necessarily existent being. He is one, and he created all these contingent beings, and none of the contingent beings has any power to do anything, but they're all in need of external support from outside in order to do the things that we witness that they are doing. right? We witness that they are saying we depend on the one necessarily existent being. With the tongue of the impotence and poverty, they are saying this. Any further thoughts on that? Shall we move on?
Yes, Abi, yes. We are observing, yes, in the impotence and the poverty in every being quite clearly, but ourselves is the best mirror for understanding what is impotence, what is poverty. We have endless needs for example, the eternity, the need of eternity. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put in our nature. Every human being wants to live eternally in this world. We are looking for eternity in this world, permanence. We don't want to die. So it is showing in the best way what is impotence, what is poverty, for example. No one can get eternity in this world. So death is putting a end to life in this world. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has put it into our essence, in our spirit. So he's showing us, we should look for eternity after death, and we should get prepared. So impotence is, maybe very quite similar to it, very close to it. We have endless, poverty, and endlessly we are, powerless, and someone is, supporting us. Someone is giving us power to continue our lives. Yes.
Yeah. And God taught Adam alayhi salam the names, all of them, all the names. One understanding, one interpretation of that is that all of these things, all of these notions that we need to understand in order to make sense of the world that we live in, and also in order to know the existence and oneness of our Creator, and to be able to increase in knowledge of Him, right? For all of these things, we first need to have those notions somewhere in us, right? So the notion of impotence is very important for us to be able to understand that God is powerful. If we have a sense of that in ourselves, then we can make sense of it, then we can grasp the concept. But if that doesn't exist in us, if we don't have it, then it won't make sense to us. Like the other day I read somewhere that sharks and some other fish, maybe turtles, they all have the sense that they can sense the magnetic fields of the earth, and they can find their way, they can navigate with that capacity, with that faculty that they have. We as human beings do not have a faculty that allows us to sense the magnetic fields of the world and therefore navigate the world. Now,
I think birds as well, Dr. Tuna.
Yeah.
Birds have that sense as well.
Some birds too. So when we invented some gadgets, and now by looking at those gadgets, we kind of understand what it means, but otherwise we don't really understand. We don't really know what it means to navigate the earth by sensing the magnetic fields, right? However,
but Dr. Tuna, like
Yeah.
one thing I would like to add though, so isn't it better, so for us as man, let's say we are able to create and make tools, isn't that our advantage in this universe, or in this dunya, for example? So of course we only have the 5 primary senses, and maybe some people believe in ESP, but I'm not sure about ESP. But we can make tools, we can make computers, we can make GPS, cars, so we can give ourselves an advantage, mechanical advantage. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean,
that is our ability as man.
Yeah. Now, two things about that. One is that we are absolutely impotent, absolutely in poverty. We are the most impotent and the poorest in the creation, but we are given intelligence, and using that intelligence we can rise, we can use things, we can make things, right? And that those are all from the effusions, blessings of God. So we can receive more. that. But the other important thing about what you said is that we can make things, therefore we can understand what it means that God made all of this. And I was trying to come to that, right? We can know what sight is because we see. We do not see in the way that God sees. It's very different, right? We do not, the quiddity of his sight is very different from the quiddity of our sight, but we know what, we have an understanding when we say God sees, right? So we have an understanding when we say God created, God made, sani, right? God made things, artfully made things, right? The way we don't get it, what it means to navigate the earth using the magnetic fields of the earth, right? Let's say the fish would not be able to get it if we try to explain to them what making is, what creating is, right? So being able to have those notions in us, and Ustad Nursi calls this the ana, right? The human eye, human self. Having those notions in us is a very important blessing for our ability to know God. And there's something in the chat. Let me check what it is. Frasa. Yeah. So frasa is the inner sight of the believer, right? So yes, all of those things. So that's that. We also have the heart. Now we are not referring to the flesh that's in our chests, but this metaphysical entity that is associated with the flesh. And in the heart we have the faculty of secret. The entire job of that secret is to have an intimate knowledge of God. We cannot pinpoint it, we cannot define it, we cannot delineate it, but we can sense it. We all sense it, that we all feel it, right? Okay. It is 10. Yes,
just
please.
A few points. I mean, for impotence and poverty, a lot of things that we have in this world, we take them for granted. So we don't think them as needs a lot of times. For example, rising of the sun every day. I mean, we are used to it. The world turns around itself and then it makes the sun rise every day. So we don't think about it, but it's like one of the most important things that we need to survive in this world. For example, rain. I mean, rain is a little bit more ambiguous. I mean, it's not like rising of the sun. So, I mean, these, we can add to this, I mean, everything that we have. I mean, this adds to our poverty, and we cannot do anything about those. I mean, if there are no clouds, I mean, we have no rain, so we can't do anything about it. That's our poverty. Or, I mean, Earth just stops all of a sudden, and then we don't have day and night. We cannot do anything about it. Since we have been seeing these, I mean, since we were born, we just got used to it, and we're not aware that those are our needs. I mean, these are only two examples. I mean, maybe I mean, if we can add to this, it's, we may better understand our poverty and impotence in this world.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, these are with degrees, right? I have been saying, like, we are the most impotent. We have all these needs that sometimes some people feel that they can overcome, right? If it doesn't rain, you can build a canal or maybe do a pipeline and bring water with the pipeline. But then hold on one second, when you bring the water with the pipeline, you are using gravity, you are using the force that holds that iron pipe together, you are using the fluidity of the water, etc., etc. You are still dependent on lots of things. So that we make tools does not mean that we overcome our dependence. We are just switching the forms of our dependence. And more than that, anything that we can think and imagine can turn into a need for the human being. And therefore, while the needs of the fish are limited, the needs of the human being are not limited, and our poverty is proportionate to our needs. And since we can have innumerable, endless needs, we have endless poverty. But to connect this back to what was here, and maybe we can end with that, what matters is that we have this notion of impotence that we powerfully sense in our own existence, and therefore we can understand the impotence and poverty of everything in the creation, every particle and every composite body that particles come together and make, or every composite body that's made of particles, right? We can sense this, we can understand that tongue, we can understand that language, right? And if we listen to that language, if we interpret what is being said in that language, that takes us to the necessary existence and oneness of the Creator, the one to him all praise is due, because everything is dependent on him. Whatever good is out there, it is from him, and therefore the praise is due to him. Okay, let's just read to the end of the paragraph, and then inshallah, as I was saying at the beginning, I couldn't start this in time, so inshallah next time we can try to do a better job of this. And blessings and peace be upon the Prophet who unveiled the secret code of the cosmos, that impotence and poverty and the tongue that is in that, right? All of those, that tongue, that language is the secret code of the cosmos, and the keys to its signs, to the signs in the creation, upon his brothers among the prophets and messengers, Anbiya and Mursaleen, upon the angels who are brought close, this is Muqarrabeen, right? The angels, the highest level of angels, and upon the righteous slaves of God among the inhabitants of the heavens and the earth. We are sending these blessings and greetings of peace to all these elite of creation, and from that we are hoping that God will turn to us with his enabling grace and help us understand what is to come, inshallah. And what is to come will start with an i'lam, right? Know this, O you for whom the nature and causes have closed the door of gratitude and opened the door of polytheism, shirk, right? Nature and causes, these are two things, two concepts that people who are drowned assuming that they can figure things out, figure the force that makes all of this possible by taking a look at the particles and their combinations, etc., etc. So that too is indicated in the previous paragraph, but inshallah we can move on to there next week, and I guess we can end there. If anybody wants to add something, we can do that. If not, we will close, inshallah.
So Professor Tuna, in that paragraph, it says, so peace be upon Prophet who unveiled the secret code of the cosmos. So is this something like what physicists and like astrophysicists, for example, like they're seeking the understanding of nature of the universe? Like, do you think that's kind of the idea? Like some physicists trying to understand, like, is there God? Of course. Is how many dimensions to the universe and so on and so forth. Is this similar line of thinking?
Well, you don't need to be an astrophysicist in order to understand the secret code of the cosmos. It is simple, right? It is simple. All you have to do, or all you need to do, is to understand the impotence and poverty that you have in yourself. And even the most ignorant person can understand that. Even the most ignorant person can understand his impotence and poverty. And once you understand that, you can start from there and build up to the secret code of the cosmos. And that is that everything is dependent on him, right? The secret code is the code. Once you break that code, you start to read everything as signs of creation. Now, if the astrophysicist breaks his ego or overcomes his ego, and also looks at what he is able to look at as signs of creation, God's signs, then he can see more of it. The other day I was watching a video, tiny clip, and this scientist is talking about a flower. Apparently he has a friend who is an artist, and the artist says, look at this, how beautiful it is, and you physicists just think of it as particles, etc., etc. And this physicist says, no, that's not the case. I also see the beauty in the flower, but in addition to that, I see I think about all these cells in the flower, and they are also beautiful, right? Those cells and the interaction between the cells is also beautiful. The interaction between the atoms that make the cells, there's beauty and aesthetics in that too. And then I see the bee that's coming to the flower. Now that means that the bee can see the color of the flower, right? So does the bee also have a sense of aesthetics, or what is bringing it to the flower? So you keep going and open up all these questions, and all those can either be meaningful questions that point to the existence as existence is, that is as contingent beings, that is as the creation of a necessarily existent being, or you can look at all of those as what Ustad Nursi calls ma'na ismi, nominative meaning, or self indicative meaning, right? Just what it is, just some cells, just some particles. Yeah, it is the particle did this, right? The electron pulled the proton. So what does it mean that the electron is pulling the proton? Right? You can reduce it to its mere material existence and be the most ignoramus of all human beings. The more you learn, the more ignorant you become in relation to the secret code. Or you can see it from the right angle. You can look at it from the right angle, and regardless of how learned you are, you can become a alim, a knower. You can become an arif. You can be a gnostic, right? So that science is a very useful, very beautiful, very good thing if it is done in the right way, if it is interpreted from the right perspective. It gives us more of those signs of creation, right? But we don't have to have it. There's something in the chat again.
Thank you for the elaboration.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And yes, this is the key about Brother Ashraf wrote that, right? Understand that I am needy is the first step. Yeah. Okay. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد